Formally seconded. Formally seconded. We move on now to motion 29 to be moved by the Dublin West Constituency Council.
John Walsh, Clonsilla, Dublin West. Thank you, Chair. As the Minister was saying, we have a proud record on political reform and in opposing corruption. But our country and our political elite in general have a very poor and limited record on political or institutional reform. All too often, the reform of politics or of our institutions has come at the bottom of the political agenda, increasingly seen or constantly seen as a luxury that we couldn't afford. But recent revelations from the Mahon Tribunal would suggest that political reform is a necessity that we can't do without. It was often said that the dogs in the street knew there was corruption and planning, and that leading members of a previously dominant political party, now languishing in opposition, were profoundly corrupt. But the Mahon Tribunal report is nonetheless of value, because delegates, we now know several things that we didn't know before. We know why Bertie Ahern never enacted a whistleblower's charter. His bookmaker might have told us just how much money he won on the horses. And we might have found out just how much sterling and dollars and loose change he took away from Cheltenham and Manchester. We know why Charlie McCreevy and Mary Harney gutted the Freedom of Information Act. Some enterprising journalist might have used official files to investigate the unbelievable incompetence with which they managed the economy, or to look in detail at the irresponsible tax incentives which inflated the property bubble. Somebody might have questioned the groupthink, the arrogance and the unthinking support for bankers that led to the banking guarantee. And we know why no Fianna Fáil politician wanted a register of lobbyists. It's hard to know how Frank Dunlop would have described himself in such a register. Former government press secretary, Fianna Fáil advisor, bagman. But it might well have restricted him and others from operating with impunity and using various parts of the country, including West Dublin, as a private theme park for speculative development. Delegates, political reform is not an abstract or theoretical issue. The absence of strong democratic rules and checks and balances that work paves the way for corruption. And corruption, as we know, is not a victimless crime. In conclusion, corruption defrauds the taxpayers, damages people's lives and wrecks communities. And it is time again for the Labour Party to rise to the challenge. Austerity will never work and will never command public acceptance without far-reaching political and institutional reform. We should not miss the opportunity to create a better society and a democracy that works. I commend the motion, Conference.